Hey guys, it's Tom from Texas and it's time for another floppy deep dive, and tonight we are going to be looking at Maniac Mansion. As you can see, I've got it surrounded by it. I got my poster here, I got the poster that comes with the game. All my systems are loaded up with Maniac Mansion, and we are going to be looking at something about the series I call the mini faces of whatever game we're going to be looking at. So I've already done the mini faces of Bruce Lee and of Karateka and Donkey Kong, and if you haven't checked out those videos, go do so. But tonight we're going to do it for Maniac Mansion and see the different systems they created for Maniac Mansion and just see how each one experiences it a little bit different, even the Japanese version of it. Also, we had some news. So last weekend my photo got shown and on the retro recipe, so I've got my retro recipe badge on and I'm wearing it proudly. It was really cool to be in that video and be included. I know a lot of the people, subscribers over there, it says those are the same subscribers that watch my channel, so I think y'all would think it's pretty cool to have it. But I was really pleased to get this in the mail. I had no clue that it was going to be in the video until I got it, so was really excited to see that. And if you haven't seen that video from last Saturday, go check that out. That was really cool. So did I mention it was cool? So anyway, back to Maniac Mansion. So for Maniac Mansion, we're going to look at all the different systems. We're going to see how the gameplay works, see how the different characters look, and just do a deep dive into it and check it all out. Now, this is the original box. On this box, it actually says, God forbid, Lust on the back. And Toys R Us pulled all these off the shelf because it said Lust on the back, and they had to reprint all the boxes. But this is one of the original that actually has the Lust on there. So I hope you enjoy this video. Go ahead and pull up a chair and let's check this thing out. So these are the systems that Maniac Mansion was released on. So I've got the system and the date that it was released, and we're going to start in the top left hand corner. Of course, it came out for the Commodore 64 and the Apple II first before any other systems. That was the original systems it was created for, and they both came out on October 5th, 1987. And then it came out on MS-DOS on March 12, 1988. On June 23, 1988, it came out for the Famicom system in Japan. And then on July 26, 1989, it came out both for the Amiga 500 and for the Atari ST. And then the enhanced version for the MS-DOS came out on December 31st, 1989. And finally, it came out on the NES system last September 18th, 1990. So these are all the systems that we're going to be looking at. That's the exact order that the screen will be displayed, so you know which system it goes to which video. And so now let's check out the video gameplay. So you have to create your team, and we're going to just go over the characters here, the different ones. So you had Dave Miller, he was the main character of Maniac Mansion, and he's the one who's dating Sandy. So he's going to go build this team to rescue Sandy to get her out of the mansion. So the other people you could have on your team, you could pick two more. You had Sid, who was a musician. You had Michael, who was a photographer. You had Wendy, who was a novelist. You had Bernard, who was just a geek. And anyway, and you had Razor, who was the lead singer of a punk band. And you had Jeff, who was the surfer dude. And so those were all the ones that you could pick from to be able to create this team. And there's many different ways to solve Maniac Mansion with different teams. And looking at these different screens, you can see how it evolved over time with the Commodore 64 and the Apple IIs up there at top, and then how it kind of expanded from there. You can see the Japanese one there in the middle left, where they kind of made the characters anime characters, just tiny little cartoonish characters at the bottom, which I thought was pretty cool. And then you could see where it kept getting more detailed when the Amiga and the Atari ST came out. Much more detail in their faces. The enhanced IBM, And then you got the NES version, which again is completely different than everybody else's, but still always the same characters, even in the Japanese version. So now suddenly we're in the middle of a madcap adventure surrounding a meteor that crashed to Earth about 20 years ago. So ever since it landed back in the yard of Dr. Fred and Nurse Edna's Victorian mansion, bizarre things have been happening. First, the mutant son, Weird Ed, dropped out of school. Then patients started disappearing from county hospital. And now this strange event is affecting the lives of innocent and even some not so innocent teenagers. In fact, a girl named Sandy is being held captive in that musty old mansion right now. Sandy's boyfriend Dave has lots of friends who need your help to sneak in and sneak her out. Now, exactly how it all ends up depends entirely on which trio of friends you send in there and which inhabitants you encounter. In fact, the further you get inside the mansion, the more weird characters you'll meet. There's Nurse Edna, who's as nasty as she is ugly. There's a disembodied tentacle who wants you to make him a rock star, and a host of others who have all their own crazy quirks you'll have to deal with. Everyone in there seems to be working for Dr. Fred, but the question is, who is Dr. Fred working for? An adventure so compelling you'll never want to leave, which is just what Dr. Fred wants. So anyway, that's the back of the box, and I want to go ahead and let's look at these more detailed. So this is the games all broke out in the different systems and their gameplay. So let's look at each system more detailed so you can see it up close. So first let's look at the Commodore 64 version, which is the original that they created Maniac Mansion for, and this is the one I grew up with and had a copy of when I was a kid to be able to play and fell in love with it. Came out, like I said, in 1987 and just never played anything like this. It was just so cool, the point and click and go to the right places and find these different clues. And it's kind of like an escape room if you ever go to those escape rooms that you could play, and trying to just find out the different clues to be able to keep getting further and further along. But of course, avoiding Dr. Fred and Nurse Edna and their son, and trying to avoid getting thrown into the dungeon. But having the right team, the three kids out there, so you could try to rescue Sandy, who's a cheerleader. And it always cracks me up that she just has this little yellow top on in these games, and how it changes the different versions. And I'll point that out when we show other ones. But it's just the Commodore 64. It's just a classic version. I loved it. Played it all the time. I don't know if I ever finally solved it. I think I did back then in the time, because I didn't have internet like you do now where you could cheat and actually get the answers and the clues and so forth. So as a kid, I don't think I ever made it all the way to the end until much later, where again finding the information to be able to solve all these different clues to get to the end. But loved the Commodore 64 version, thought it was great. Thought it looked great at the time in 1987. And let's move on now and look at the Apple II, which was the other original one they made this game for. So now let's look at the Apple II Maniac Mansion. I'm not sure what's the deal with the eye, why one eye is red and one eye is black, and it looks like they only have one eye in this version. It was just very, very odd. I did not play the Apple II version when I was a kid at all, so this was all new to me. But all these games, you could tell, have like this original same type setup, right? Where the rooms are pretty much all in the same place, the clues are all pretty much in the same place, and everything is very familiar. So even if you didn't know what you were doing, and you're playing a new version of a system you never played before, you'd still be very familiar with it, which I was. And of course, there's Nurse Edna capturing you and throwing you in the dungeon, and she's just the nastiest, right? And some of these versions, she, like here, it looks like she has the same skin color. Sometimes she's blue. She's all different colors, making comments like tying him to the bed and so forth. It's just so gross, and she's just definitely a character, interesting character. And walking around this dungeon, again, you know, you got to find that loose brick up there by the window and have a friend in there so you can escape. So there's always an escape to get out of there. I think there's just a few clues where if you do it and mess it up, there's no going back. But definitely getting put in the dungeon isn't the worst type thing. But here is again Dr. Fred and Nurse Edna, or not Nurse Edna, Sandy. And they looks very similar to the Commodore 64 besides just the one eye messed up. But the Apple II looks, they were both obviously came out at the same time, so they were produced at the same time, and they look very familiar, and I think everything gameplay wise was exactly the same, how they talk, all the different situations, all the different clues, but still very cool just to see the Apple II, and I know a lot of people grew up on that one and love this version too. So now let's move on to the next one, the MS-DOS version that came out next. So here's the MS-DOS version. It actually looked really good. Again, I never played this version before. This is my first time playing this. And this came out later than the original Commodore 64 and the Apple, and I showed the dates on there when I was showing the systems. But this was the third one to come out. This version looks like it's the crack because you can already open that door right there. You didn't even have to unlock it or use the keypad to get in there. Everything in here also very similar to the Commodore 64 and the Apple clues, the room layouts, everything. Didn't really see any much different changes or anything that popped out besides, like I said, it looks really good, looks real clean and real sharp. I don't know if I mentioned this was LucasFilm's first foray into, you know, making games, and so what a great one to start on, right? With a hit a home run right out of the gate. And of course, here's the green tentacle that we all love to hate, or all just love, and then of course there's the purple tentacle too. Drove me nuts trying to figure out what to feed this damn thing to get by him. But that's the enhanced one for the IBM. Like I said, I liked this one, enjoyed it. It was easy to play, easy to maneuver. Really good version of it. So people who grew up with the IBM version of it, and this is the last time we're going to see IBM. This is the first one they did, but obviously not the last version that came out on the IBM. I also thought it was really interesting that the color of the character is the exact same color of the paint of the wall, so how their face blends in with the wall. I don't know, it just bugged me. Of course, here's the gargoyle opening that door. But all right, let's move on. Next, we're going to look at a real interesting version, the Japanese version of Maniac Mansion. So this one was my favorite doing the research that I came across, not just because it was, you know, Japanese or something along those lines. I just never seen it before, and I just thought they did a really cool version of this game, kind of turning it, like I said, a little anime cartoon characters. I don't know what that password up there is for, and I have no clue what they were saying. I tried to use my Google Translate to see if I could actually translate some of the stuff in this game, because as you'll see once we get started into the gameplay, unless you can read Japanese, it was really difficult to know the point and click stuff. So if you look down there in the bottom left hand side and you look at that writing, I have no clue what that was saying. I didn't know what the sound was that it kept making, and I think it's maybe the phone's ringing or something. That red box there might be ringing. I'm not sure if that's a phone box, but anyway, so I have these characters, and now I have to try to figure out what those words mean so I can give them the right command to walk and to do so for. So walk was pretty easy. I figured that one out just with the point and click. It was allowing me to do it. But once I got to the front door and it wanted me to pick up the mat and wanted me to unlock the door, so I've got to lift the mat and unlock the door. And I have no clue what any of these down here say to be able to give them the right commands to be able to get in there. So luckily I did some Google research, because like I said, I could not use Google Translate. So I just went out there and researched to see if someone took the time and there's actually someone dead out there, and so it gave me the commands of which one each one of those were, so I could actually play this game and select and pick the right ones that, you know, I wanted to be able to do. But like I said, it was just cool to see how different it is, but still the same, if that makes sense. Definitely a lot more cleaned up. Definitely a lot more just family friendly, because I think Nintendo had those rules, as just like on the NES, where things had to be cleaned up, and you couldn't mention about killing or lust or anything of the Nurse Edna's stuff or any of those different things. So that's why it was interesting that I finally got in the door here and could come in here. And as you can see the whole room. There's no scrolling side to side. That's the whole room right when you walk in. But the cool thing is you're still going right into the kitchen. If you go into this door, and if I figure out how to open it up, you could still go in here, and through this door is going to be the kitchen. And it's still going to be Nurse Edna in there. There she is, come running after you. And so you could run a little bit easier because you could just stand right next to the door and she's coming straight at you. But still the same kind of thing. All the different formats of everything is still the rooms, the clues, and so forth. So like I said, I thought that was just really, really cool to like, once you play one version, you can play any version, even Japanese, right? You have a little bit of the language barrier that makes it a little bit harder, but with the little internet research and so forth, you could still move around. And here again, here's another room where you see the whole room instead of it just scrolling on the other systems where you don't see it until you actually walk over into it. And then I found this really interesting. Look at Dr. Fred and look at Sandy. Sandy is no longer in her little crop top showing her belly or anything like that. Now she's dressed like she's going to church. Looks like she has a little dress on and very cleaned up and so forth. So just thought that was interesting how they changed that format and how they even made Sandy look different. She's still there, but definitely not looking the same as she did in the first 3 versions that we were looking at. Definitely a big, huge change. But again, this was just so much fun to play and just so interesting to see the different way how they handle this thing. Where Dr. Fred's actually going out the door there. Obviously, I think she's saying help, help, help in Japanese right there. But just really, really fun just to see this version. And like I said, this was my favorite out of all of them when I was doing the experimenting and trying different systems. This one's the one that really caught my eye, and I just had a blast just seeing how they handled it and how they did it on this system. So thumbs up to it. And if you haven't checked this one out, definitely get this one and check this game out. So next we're going to look at the Amiga 500 version, and this is my original version from my Amiga 500, and it's definitely different than what we had before on the Commodore 64. Definitely an upgrade. Of course, it did come out later. It came out at the same time as the Atari ST. And this version, as you can see, is they cleaned it all up. It looks very much more detailed. The graphics are much better. Obviously on a better, more powerful machine. But it still keeps the same traditional format of the point and click, of how the different rooms look, everything laid out. And again, just a really pretty version. That they came along and adapted well to the Amiga 500. I always still struggle a little bit in the dark scenes where you got to try to find the lamp and find the light switch to be able to turn it on so you can have light in these rooms. So switch over to Jeff and play as the surfer dude. And I try to play a variety of different characters when I'm playing these different versions, just to be able to check out just their different, because they each have different talents that they could do, like I explained in the character part section. And this is a 2 floppy game, just like the Commodore 64 had the front and the back. This one has 2 floppies to it. And you can see the different things. You see Dave standing there pushing a gargoyle with the doors open to the thermonuclear room. This one right there has the big vault on there. Look where the doctor and the nurse, they both look like they're blue in this version and look more like zombie-like, and definitely more freaky looking, especially Nurse Edna. Here's just the keypad to be able to get through. And again, this is the cracked version, so it lets you get through there, where if you don't have the cracked version, you got to look in the book to be able to see the right number to be able to get through that door, or you can potentially blow up the house. So just little things like that to be able to go in there. Now you can open the door and get into the security room. But again, just really good version, nice and clean. Love my Amiga 500, and this is just another fun game to play. Look at the detail in here, the pictures, the statue, everything looks just really good. So let's move on and see what the Atari ST, which came out the same time, what it looked like. So here's the Atari ST, and I like how the little characters actually stick out their tongue and make different facial expressions on this opening intro screen. I thought that was cool, nice little touch. But it actually looks very similar, almost exactly like the Amiga 500. With them both being released at the same time, that makes sense. That the graphics are very similar, and it looks really good quality, but it looks, like I said, right there par with the Amiga, and everything on there is looking good. This guy, again, everybody's still blue. I don't know why they changed them all to blue, but again, all these rooms look very detailed, very sharp, really cool. But won't go on this one too long, just because we've looked at all these before, and it looks so similar to the Amiga. But I wanted to show the Atari ST too, because like I said, another quality version, looks really good, and enjoyed playing this one. So now we're going to look at the enhanced IBM version that they came up later. So they came out this after the Amiga and after the Atari ST, and it looks very similar to what we just saw. Everything looks good. Back to the beginning here, and I wanted it to be a true Maniac Mansion video if you don't mention Tuna Head at least once. And here's good old Dave telling Bernard that don't be a tuna head. Just love it. But the enhanced version here, again, looking really good. I know I say that on everything. Everything's looking really good, looking really sharp. But they did a really good upgrade to the IBM version, the MS-DOS version, and this is the advanced one. And again, the Amiga, the Atari ST, and this enhanced version are almost just picture perfect same, right? They all look the same. They all play very similar. I think the Amiga takes a little bit longer to load up than these versions. I think these versions tend to be quicker. Just my observation when I was playing and so forth between screens. I don't know if you remember back on the Amiga, you would see the snail when it was loading, but here everything's really pretty quick, really prompt to get into it. I really like this one. I thought the smooth gameplay was really nice, and the enhanced version was just like all the others. The rooms are same, everything else is the same, but it's just really easy, a good flow to be able to move around and to do the click and point and so forth and play this game. So let's move on to the very last one, and that's the NES system, which is a lot of people didn't get until 1990. We were all in from the Commodore 64 world. We're three years in already playing this game, but now it's going to be coming out on the NES in North America, so let's give it a look. So the NES version is truly different than everything else that's out there, and so it's a little bit easier to talk about because some of this stuff is obvious. First thing here is they show the 20 years ago today out of order than all the other games. It comes out first right here, has the music where all the other games start right at the characters, and after you select your characters, then it would show the meteorite striking 20 years ago. So a little bit out of order, a little bit different. Showing more of this intro and beginning just so you could see the difference in it before. This one again is the last one that came out in the 1990. There's actually, it came out one in Europe a little bit later after this one, but I'm not showing that one. I don't know what the difference is between the Europe one and the North America release. But as you can see, looking at these characters here, they definitely all look a little bit different than all of the other games again. More cartoony, kind of like the Japanese version, but without bodies, just heads. Dave's got red hair, which is completely different than them all. They all start with the big moon off to the side, but the NES has to be, you know, again, more cartoony, looks more like the Japanese version than all the other versions when they do it. Not that the other ones don't look cartoony, but this definitely look more anime and so forth. Different music to go along with it, you know, and just really cool. I enjoy playing it. I like when there's a variety like that that shows you different things that you might not have ever seen before. But I know a lot of people, this is what they grew up on. This is they played the NES version, and this is what they know. So this is common to them. But to me, this was awkward compared to my Commodore 64. Definitely the same stuff. Got to go to the doormat, get your key and so forth to be able to get in to unlock this. But I just wanted to give a bit longer view on this just because it is so different. And NES had these standards where they had to change up a lot of stuff that's in the original game that NES deemed, you know, not nice to say or dirty. They would clean it up, so you don't have Nurse Edna going in there telling them they want to tie you up to the bed or do naughty things to you. It's basically all that's been wiped out of there. You still have Tuna Head, so but different things like that just are removed out of the game because NES thought it was, you know, not PC, right? You couldn't mention killing, even though that's the whole thing that's going on here. Dr. Fred is killing people, sucking their brains out, but God forbid that you said that, you know. Unlike the Japanese version, you do have the scrolling, so it's not all one big room like it was on all the other one. You know, the Japanese version had just one room where everything else is all scrolling, so that's more similar to the other games when they're doing it. I know in this version they changed it where they said that, you know, the Meteor is going to be pissed, and all the other games was changed that the Meteor is going to be mad, which is what a big change, right? Just cool, just cool. Anyway, love this version, enjoyed playing the NES version and how they had to clean it up, and it's definitely different. So if you ever play this one, look for those little subtle changes that they made. So things that I didn't think was naughty, I thought actually enhanced the game and made it more fun, they took out of this game. So that's everything here. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please give it a big whopping thumbs up. Leave some comments down the bottom. Tell me what you guys think. I'm going to be creating more of these, so I hope you all subscribe. We're getting very close to 1,000, and I'm just happy to have as many people joining and watching these videos as I do. And thank you for joining me on another Floppy Deep Dive.